running fit. So thank you again. As I said to those of you who joined just now, we're a little slim, I guess, from last week where there was all three of us in one topic. It's just myself and Gabby's hidden her photo. So, but the two of us are going to chat you through a couple of the slides today. We have three topics. I guess for those of you who haven't met me or have only joined more recently, my name is Stuart and I look after the Africa territory. And yeah, obviously normally join Gabby and I'm on these calls on a bi-weekly basis. So for today, there's obviously a couple of things that Gabby wants to share with you afterwards, but for me kicking off, three topics, two of these that are, I guess, maybe for some of you who are more regularly playing around inside the SureMDM console, you perhaps may have noticed in the last couple of weeks anyway. The third, perhaps slightly more hidden within our compliance job, and I guess it continues a little from what Armand shared a few weeks ago, where he spoke of some of the other compliance jobs, and this one specifically about SIM provider restrictions, and by that what we mean, and it's very popular in my territory, is the ability to be able to apply some restrictions to a device based on the SIM that is physically installed. So whoever the mobile network provider is on that device, or various mobile network providers should be on that device, we're able to restrict and obviously apply some compliance conditions to that. So let me hop into my console. As I said, first one really is about some improvements in the SureMDM Hub, and I'll touch on those quickly within this hub that I'm sharing now. Again, for those of you who use this more regularly, you may have noticed some color coding down the expiry date portion of the hub, and it really perhaps one step back, as you would have heard many of us, or I'm sure your account managers and Oman and myself on these calls having mentioned that hub is obviously something really, really interesting for us. We've had massive adoption from our partners. And we obviously are wanting to be able to build this into something that is really rich in terms of features for you and for your customers. We've pointed out before the little icon at the top right-hand side mentioning feature requests. One of those, and I guess I can be happy that it came from my region, was from one of our partners in this region who spoke specifically about the ability for his team, his operational and his technical team, to be able to, at a quick glance, see customers' environments that were getting closer or potentially have already expired. So just a nice quick visual indication of where they were in terms of their subscription status or how close they were to the expiry date. And so you'll see in this environment that we've set up, there's the four, I guess we could call them options. This, just as a matter of interest, is not going to ever show on a trial environment. So the trial environment, we're not going to monitor. You will see your expiry date indicated just under that expiry date condition or text. But below that, a quick look at these four colors. Obviously, green would be what you expected to see on all of your customer consoles that are running within that subscription period. Okay, that's I guess we could call it a healthy subscription in terms of where we're going. As we're getting a little angrier, yellow, an indication that the expiry date is now within 60 days. And so traditionally or normally at this point in time, your sales team would have already received an email from our team notifying them of the fact that there would be a recurring or a subscription renewal required within that 60-day period. Orange indicating 30 days. So we're getting closer to those that are not looking as friendly, the reds. But yeah, again, a kind of a quick reminder that we're getting closer. And then red would indicate an expired trial, an expired console that has now passed the expiry date and has officially had its access closed. So your customer, whoever it might be, would not be able to log into that environment. Obviously, the console remains. At any point in time, you can go and re-enable that. But this, as a quick visual indicator, I think, and I hope many of you agree, is a really, really helpful way of being able to identify and perhaps have your technical or operational teams being able to go to perhaps the account manager or the salesperson responsible, and I guess give them a nudge to mention that there's an environment that needs to be renewed in a really short period of time. So that's the first. That was the hub improvements that we were speaking about. The second may be something that probably some of you are familiar with and some may not be familiar with. And this is in our normal environment. And for those of you who've specifically reached out, either yourselves or our customers, to our tech support, what you would have seen is that quite often our tech support team would have asked for access to the console, be that the customer's console or perhaps a trial console that you're running within. And so historically, we had the ability to be able to grant that access for our tech support team. But as time has moved on, there's also been some feedback that our customers or our partners would like to be able to give access just to specific, maybe folders, environments, specific devices, maybe a tag. And you'll see as I go here, there is an option to be able to tag some devices for troubleshooting. So in order to be able to get to this, we're going to go to settings, account settings, and then we're going to go all the way to the bottom of the list on the left-hand side under the miscellaneous settings tab. Okay, and obviously it looks exactly the same or very similar to what you would have historically seen if you had used this function. There is the option to be able to enable an access duration in terms of hours. So you're busy having a call with our technical support team, you're going to grant them access for the next 1 hour, as an example. Obviously, they would have normally given you an email address. In this case, I'm going to use the tech support at 42gears.com email address. That would generally be the type of person who you would be interacting with and who would request that support or that access to your console. And this is where the big changes happen now, is the ability to be able to change, obviously, the revoked to enabled. But on doing this, you will see that we display, in fact, for those of you who are familiar with our user management environment in SureMDM, this is almost an exact copy of what you would normally see in that environment. So we have the ability to define the roles, and these are for this particular person, one of our team members who's going to be connecting to your console. What would you allow them to do in terms of the permissions inside your environment? Which groups of devices would you allow them to be able to see? And in my console, obviously, I have some of these geographical splits in terms of folders, which jobs, and potentially which profiles. So we've covered a couple of these in the previous bits and bolts, where we've shown how you can create folders and give specific users access to that group or selection of jobs and profiles. And lastly, also, if perhaps there was a custom report that you had created, and this is part of your query or the discussion that you're having with our technical support team, the ability to be able to give them access specifically to that custom reports folder. I mentioned earlier as well about the 42gears troubleshooting tag. Most of you may have noticed, if you're using tags, that is already created by default in your environment. And so if I chose to go about this a different way, I would be able to check this box, allowing access only to those devices that I've already tagged with the 42gears troubleshooting environment. And remember, you can have multiple tags, so no reason at all to, we can actually jump there quickly. There's no reason at all to go and make changes to existing tags or identify other devices or make anything that is not part of what you would like to be covering. But in this environment, you would see here is the 42gears troubleshooting device tag. And I can go and very quickly right-click on it, tag, assign a tag, and I can go and add my 42gears troubleshooting device. And if I had checked, obviously, the checkbox specifically around troubleshooting devices, only that list of devices that are tagged will be available to our technical support team. So again, just a quick recap: settings, account settings, miscellaneous settings down the left-hand side, second from the bottom. And then it's the first option that allows us to be able to make changes and grant the access to the person from our team who's asked, as well as, if you were finished perhaps a call with our technical team, the ability to just slide this little switch from left to right and revoke that access again. Really, the idea is to be able to give you, as either the partner or as the customer, if it is the customer who's connected with our team, the ability to grant just what is needed and to be able to take that back at any point in time. It really, I guess, gives you or the customer complete control of any access that might be available to your environment. So hub changes, obviously, you've seen those. I've run through those quite quickly. The console changes in terms of access. And then now, as you would have seen, I spoke specifically about being able to show the compliance job for SIM provider restrictions. And let me show you where we found that, as I said a little bit earlier, we had covered compliance jobs in actually a few of the previous bits and bolts sessions. previously you would have noticed, and again within our, so perhaps for those who are not familiar, jobs, new job, in this case I'm going to go to the Android operating system selection, and then I'm going to scroll down to the compliance job. Previously, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of this, but we had mention of a SIM restriction. We have reworded that now to call it SIM integrity monitor. And the original environment that allowed you to be able to monitor, obviously, the change of a SIM, which was the original selection in this environment, remains. But you will notice that below that, we have now added what we're calling network information monitoring. Okay, there's two parts to this. The first is you would have originally or maybe noticed within the device info panel that as part of our network info tab and as part of the details that we're extracting for what we would call SIM1 and SIM2, let me hop to over the device that's got some SIMs. We are now also reporting the MCC value, which is the mobile country code, as well as the MNC value, which is the mobile network code. And a combination of those two values would allow you not only to limit the country of access, but the physical provider. In South Africa, we have two providers. I've got two SIMs in this device. One is, well, two of many, but the one is Cell C and the one is Telkom SA. You can see those two identified, and you can see that the country code obviously remains 655, but the actual network code, the unique network code in this case is a 07 and a 02. And so using the combination of those, I now have the ability to be able to enable both a restriction perhaps on somebody having either removed a SIM or changed a SIM, or allowing perhaps access to something specific on my devices if that was my requirement based on a SIM having been inserted. So again, quick jump back to this compliance job. You will see we can enable both SIM1 and SIM2, and we can monitor, and again, in my case where perhaps I'm not interested in the MCC change because the country code is always going to be the same, I perhaps don't choose necessarily to enable that, but I could specifically enable the MNC, the network change value. And you'll see we also mentioned, if you hover over the little information button, that it is possible to specify a number of different providers. So I may have, perhaps in this specific use case, because this request originated out of Africa, the requirement to be able to lock a device to only two providers. Okay, we didn't mind whether the provider was, the SIM was going to be in the SIM1 or SIM2 slot, but we were able to restrict that user was only able to make use of those two providers that they were technically allowed to use within that business. So, for example, I'm going to do 0207, which are obviously the two that we had in my device, my test device. Again, obviously, if I wanted to make use of the mobile country code, this one was 655. I can enter that, and I can now enable this compliance job both on SIM1 or SIM2 or both, and then take my standard actions that you would have seen in all of what we've spoken about. So the ability to message, move to block lists, wipe or lock devices, trigger an email, and then probably the most popular, the ability to apply a job. And really, as most of you I'm sure will know, that means that you can go back to your full list of jobs that you've structured on the device or within your console, and make changes to the way that those work. It might be deploying a SureLock configuration that perhaps limits access or enables access if you're going to be using it the opposite way around. And remember also that you can stack these. So the ability to be able to perhaps send a message as well as add an action, and if need be, add a delay. And I know Amon chatted through this when he was doing some of the compliance jobs a few weeks ago, but remember, this can be a stack of jobs that are triggered based on some different timing, or potentially all at the same time in the way that you would like to be able to take that action on the device. So just a quick run through again. Obviously, MCC and MNC would be the critical or the really important parts of what we're going to be tracking. If you're going to be restricting one of those specifically, you have the choice to select either of these, the MCC or the MNC, or both. And again, as I haven't clicked on SIM2 yet, but you will see the exact same layout for both SIM1 and SIM2, and I can go and make those restrictions on both of those and push this as a compliance job. So it's something that I think right now, and again, as I said, within the region that I'm responsible for, the ability to be able to control SIM access, and SIM access specifically when a device is roaming into perhaps a neighboring country, where there are obviously significant mobile data charges and various other concerns for some of our partners and customers. This really is a significant step forward in terms of the way that you can manage that. And I've seen some really creative ways of using these actions. Even somebody a little while ago who was just sending an email when one of their staff was physically leaving the territory or the country that they were working in. So again, a combination of country code and network code, a combination of SIM1 and SIM2, and obviously all of those actions that we give you as part of the out of compliance actions, or the opposite way around, where you're going to revoke that compliance action because the device is now compliant with what you have given it to do, is obviously an option as part of building this environment. Cool. Gabby, I didn't have a look at any questions. Were there any questions or not? I have a look to the side.
No, we don't. But
Good.
that was interesting to find out a little bit more. So you said about the roaming.
Yeah.
So as you were telling us the story, and I'm thinking, okay, so this is just in transport, or thinking about movement of goods and so on. But obviously there is, was this your case, or was it?
It was.
I have two questions, sorry.
Yeah.
And the second one,
Sure.
as I'm looking at SIM1 and SIM2, so this is something good from a BYOD perspective, assuming that SIM1 could be
Absolutely.
the work one. And so, yeah, can you just tell us a bit more?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so this specific use case was about being able to control drivers who traveled over national borders. And obviously, and I guess, as I said a little bit earlier, all of us know the extensive costs that could potentially be added to a bill when you're using the incorrect SIM in perhaps a country that is now considered to be roaming. And so that really was I guess we could call the base requirement for this particular customer. And since then it's really expanded. But yeah, I mean, a combination of being able to, your job could potentially be to turn off SIM1 or turn on SIM2. So our out of compliance actions, and the fact that we can add a job, and potentially the job really would be any of the jobs that we have specifically within your chosen operating system list of triggers, is there and is possible. And so by just adjusting whatever that either country code in this case, or in country but changing through different providers, there is a very easy way. In fact, I have a proof of concept on at the moment where there is a partner who is aware of the fact that one of the providers doesn't have good coverage in a particular area. And so they are looking to be able to trigger and get some feedback just in terms of messaging as to when the device is switching between those different country codes. So I guess the platform gives you the ability to obviously be able to monitor them. What you do kind of outside of that, or what your actions or triggers are based on those, is really almost unlimited.
Cool. And from a BYOD perspective, have you seen these also?
Absolutely, as well. I haven't yet, but I mean, as you said it, I could think of probably a few examples of how it could be used. I think obviously depending on the permissions on the device and how we eliminate both work and personal profile, there may be some I guess some hurdles we might need to hop over, but absolutely there I can see I guess the practical way of using this in enforcing both personal and work SIM type environments. Definitely. It would be really interesting. I'm thinking, I guess, ahead to where maybe somebody perhaps has the same provider for their own personal SIM and the work SIM, and then we might need to go about it slightly differently. But generally, how we make a change in this, I think can be done so simply, and those actions or those triggers are almost limitless in terms of what 42 gears can do.